who Kelsey Grammer is on with us. He has written a new book, and before I bring him on, I want to read what's on the back cover of his book, or the PR people said. On July 1st, 1975, Kelsey Grammer's younger sister, 18-year-old Karen Grammer, was raped and murdered. In Karen, Kelsey reveals their past, celebrates their youth together, mourns her loss, and unearths his struggle for faith and healing in the decades since her death. That is such bullcrap if you've read the book. That's a PR person saying, it's almost like ChatGPT. Before I bring him on, let me just show you what this book is in his own words in the book. Recounting her history and the events that landmark her story is part of what's going on here, but another part is how she continues in me, or how I've imprisoned her with my inability to let her go. That idea haunts me. Recounting her funeral and the events of her death has made me realize how mad I was at myself, how angry that one thing that I had always done, I didn't do. I felt unmasculated and empty. All my big brother protector BS was just that. No, Karen, get back to Karen. Okay, it's important to remember the tragedy of her death belongs to her. Not entirely true, perhaps, because you see, I've often said that to dismiss my own feelings about it. The tragedy belongs to her, as if I have no right to view it as my tragedy, but it belongs to me too. Her death belongs to her. The consequences belong to me and to the men who killed her. And to me, because I couldn't stop them. I didn't stop them. That was my issue with it all, and I felt like I had failed her. Don't read the back cover. Read the book. It's called Karen by Kelsey Grammer. Kelsey, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you.
This is an amazingly powerful book. You want to tell a little bit of the story?
Yeah, sure. I deeply appreciate what you just read. What happened, it's 50 years ago, July 1st this year. I have carried it with me for a long, long time, and I probably would have continued to do that. It was sort of having reached a kind of stalemate with the grief and remembrance that always sort of favored the grief part. I was doing a channeling session with a woman who's kind of a famous medium in some of the circles I travel. And in the midst of the session, she said, "Oh, wait a minute, your sister is saying that she wants you to tell her story." And that was kind of a remarkable moment, because I've delved into this world a bit, this sort of mediumship world. I produced a show called Medium years ago. And it's meant to be a healing art, I think. But I'd never heard anyone say that. And I suddenly thought, that sounds authentic and real, like Karen really is asking me to do this. And so I sat down about a month later. I waited a while, and I sat down and started to jot down some notes. And about 8 or 9 pages into it, I suddenly realized I was writing a book about Karen, about my sister, and about the life we'd lived together, and about the life that I'd lived since her time, and the life I've lived with her always in my mind. And so I came up with this book, and this book is part spoken by Karen, part written by my imagination and my recollection. And in a weird way, the writing itself became a kind of a channeling event in my life, where things came up in clarity that I'd forgotten. That it was extraordinary. Time just disappeared, and suddenly I was still holding my little sister's hand, or taking her up a hill to take a snow ride, or a ride on a sled, or we were out on a boat together, and or sitting in a hammock together. And all these things became the sort of the world of the book, and the world that was the world I grew up in with Karen, and then the world, of course, that I was left with when she was gone. We were extremely close. That was probably different than some brother-sister stories, but, there's no one closer to you genetically than your brother or your sister. You're identical, basically. Yeah. So it was a very important experience.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. That was it.
I was taken aback. I wasn't going to go here, but you brought it up, the medium thing. I was taken aback, and it made me think of Harry Houdini. After his mother died,
right.
He became obsessed with the other side and trying to reach. And then when he died, he said to his wife, continue to try to find me, and I will tell you, I will say the words, best believe. And she never heard that. But he was obsessed with that. You talk about Christ in an amazing way. If I may quote, I think of Christ. The world gave him so much hate. He gave them so much love. God bless him. God bless Karen. God bless Mom. God bless Evangeline, Gam. My God, even his body distorted in the grimace of inhumane torture, Jesus beseeched, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Their hate and their fear killed love. Imagine that. How could that happen? So that was the one thing that I wondered. Have you forgiven yourself really yet fully? Because you're carrying around guilt that is not yours, and even if it was, you got to find a way to let it go, and that's the whole point of Christ. Have you found that place yet?
Yeah, it did come. But what's funny about life is, from each morning you wake, there may come a fresh spring of self-loathing or regret that will indict you. But of course Jesus is there to take it. That's what's amazing in the book. I have this moment where I was just sitting on a plane, and it was as if finally Jesus was sitting beside me, saying, "This one's mine. You got to let it go. I'll take it." And of course, I still resist that, because it's like it's sort of. I think, well, no, I'm a man. I can handle this. I can take it. And there's just some things. And then Jesus finally said to me, he said, "No, I got this. I got this. It's why I came." And that helps me a great deal. And of course, it's so funny, the mediumship thing. I'm going to deflect for a second. The mediumship thing is reviled by my buddy Greg Laurie, who is a sort of a fundamental, kind of evangelistic guy. I really enjoy him. But I always point out to my friends from that particular quarter, that whole book about Revelation, that is channeled. I don't know. Come to terms with this, but John sitting in that cave and stuff, and all this information he got, and talking with Jesus. I guess it's okay in the Bible, but it's not okay anywhere else. I think this is another sort of arrow in the quiver of God's quiver. That you will get information from so many different places. Be careful, because the sneaky one can come along for the ride once in a while and sort of insinuate his way into what you hope is a healing message. But God's clarity is apparent in many places.
Let me take you to one of the more incredible parts of the book. Your sister was brutally murdered and raped, and I wanted to, at one point in the book, you get the police report, and you see the police report, and it's deeply disturbing, and you read it cold. And if I may, I've spent more than a month away from writing, longer pause than I intended. There were some health concerns in the family and a trip abroad. I had reached a crossroads. A while back, Jim Bentley with the prosecutor's office in Colorado Springs sent me a copy of the files on Karen's death, files of the investigation, the murder scene. This is the record. It was sent with a warning. I want to caution you about the details you will learn if you read all the material I'm sending you. Please consider having someone you know and trust to review this information before you decide to read it yourself. There is no way to unring the bell or perhaps have somebody else summarize the information. Might be an alternative to reading it yourself. But you read it and you don't regret it. Tell me about that moment and that process. It occurred to me in that moment that if it was something so painful, why would I make somebody else do it? That one was for me. That was meant for me to do. And of course, then I tried to cushion it when I revealed some of the facts that I learned in the police report. I tried to make them a little more palatable to people. I described some things that were truly horrible that Karen suffered that night. But that was in order to kind of gain a sense of credibility of
a credential of suffering that other people who've been through similar things would recognize and say to themselves, okay, he's talking about what I know. He's talking from the same place that we've been put in. And, sorry, excuse me. So that they would be able to say that the advice I give is true. The longing that I've experienced about, missing my loved one is the same they've experienced. And so that my words of comfort come from a place they would recognize.
It was what you pulled out of that, if I may. Read the police report again now and again. And after 2 months, I now find an uneasy comfort in these pages. I've spent so many years playing out these moments in my imagination. Now I know the truth. There's no smidgen of relief. There's only clarity. It is the place, only imaginings of how she must have felt and thought and suffered during those final hours of her life. Is that comfort that you now know everything? It's better.
That was real. Yeah, that's a real thing for me because I had so much conjecture, and I guess I don't think I'm special in this regard. I mean, being an actor, I guess we spend a lot of our time coming up with excuses, reasons, justifications, understandings, things that connect us to the motivation of characters we're playing, fantasies, basically. So my mind has always been very fertile that way. So everything that Karen went through, there was another component to it of what I imagined she went through. So there was deep comfort in knowing truth finally. So many things that I'd supposed were not the truth. And so the comfort I read in the pages was simply that I now had information that was accurate, that would help me keep the men who killed her in jail. But also it was the end to me coming up with stories that I hadn't thought of. It was the end of imaginings. It was so that was a comfort because I had spent so much of my life kind of wrestling with, I wonder what that was, or I wonder if this happened, or what she was doing there.
Yeah.
And by being able to track some of her footsteps and actually going and reliving some of them, I was able to find a way into what Karen was really thinking that night, stuff like that. Before, why was she there? Why was she sitting behind the restaurant where she'd worked? And I suddenly realized, she liked company. That was a huge burden lifted from me about how did she get there? I suddenly realized, she walked there because she thought, maybe, I'll go have a drink with a pal. And that reduced so much of my anxiety about it to a simple remembrance of who Karen was. Karen was great company. She was a wonderful person to spend some time with. And to remember that was more important than, any of the horrors in a weird way. The horrors about what I'd imagined were just as horrible, or even what actually happened was worse than I'd imagined in many ways. But to know the truth did set me free, which is, biblical.
Yeah. The truth does that. It can make you miserable at first, but it will set you free. Okay. Back with Kelsey Grammer. Can I ask you, I read a quote from somebody, I don't remember who said it, but they said, you die twice. First, when you stop breathing, and second, when somebody mentions your name for the very last time. Did that kind of thinking play a role? Isn't that great? Did that kind of thinking play a role with you at all in holding on to her and speaking her name and making sure she was a part of your life?
Yeah, I discussed it in the book. The word remember is my favorite word because it is, if you break it off after the R-E, right, and put a little hyphen in there, remembering means you remember again. You are a member of society, and you are brought back to life in every moment that you're remembered. And so that's why I think it's important, and that's which is one of the reasons I wrote the book. But I hadn't thought of that. But what's nice is when people call or text me and say, I just finished the book, I know your sister Karen now. It's just great to see her name written that way. It's great to hear them say her name as though she's alive today. And that makes all the difference.
You talk about justice in the book, and you're very raw. You want to see your sister's murderers rot in jail. And in fact, I think at one point you say, if I had the opportunity, I would have killed them, and I still probably would kill them. And I don't blame you. I mean, it is really honest and raw. But our culture emphasizes, and maybe overemphasizes at times, compassion over justice. But both justice and compassion come from God, and there's a careful balance in there. How do we balance that? You think you found the balance?
If I were to, sort of assign where that sentiment has arisen, I think it's because we've kind of lost touch with God as a society in many ways. I think there's a bit of a comeback going on right now, which I'm enjoying, and I hope the rest of the country is too. But government is flawed, and of course, judgment within the confines of our government today and our courts. I mean, of course, that there have been some people who've gone to jail who shouldn't have, but there are those remarkably sort of landmark cases where there's no question this guy should stay in jail. The prevalence right now of people saying, well, maybe it's been long enough, that kind of stuff. It's, yes, I get that there is a component of what justice and compassion might actually be when they're twinned, but this guy is past that, beyond that, and needs to remain in jail. And it's just we need to have the courage to say that consequences do have their place in our society, and the free ride thing, which is what's becoming very popular right now, or the skate aspect of justice is not prudent.
Kelsey, I mean, just so he doesn't die a second death, I just want to say George went today. Norm on Cheers, he passed away this week. I'd love to talk to you about that, but we're out of time. I've only got about 45 seconds. I would love to talk to you in a longer form at some point, but I just have to tell you, I watched the new Fraiser. You have created the funniest character that is so long run now. The characters on your show are so brilliant. Every single one of them in this new version of Fraiser. It is the funniest show, the best well-written show on television. And thank you for all of the laughs that me and my family have watching Fraiser over the years, from Cheers all the way to the latest. But thank you so much for all of the laughs.
You're thank you.
You're great. You're a treasure. Thanks, Kelsey. I appreciate it.
I feel the same about you. Man. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Right. Kelsey Grammer. If you haven't seen his show, I don't remember what network it's on now, but it's fantastic. But you should read, especially if you've lost somebody. Karen, A Brother Remembers. The way he has dealt with things and let things go.